everybody. So obviously last night was the Seattle expansion draft where the Kraken picked their team, taking one player from every other NHL team except for Vegas, who for some reason was exempt. But it was an interesting night. Obviously, unfortunately, all the picks leaked out over the course of the day, so there wasn't really any surprise factor during the draft when they were being picked, but it was still a fun night. I want to thank everyone for that tuned in during the stream, for the live stream covering the expansion draft. And now what I want to do is just kind of quickly go through and do a recap of the picks for Seattle. The other thing to keep in mind is that any trades that happened have not been announced yet. They will not be announced until the roster freeze is over this afternoon. So we don't know what other kind of moves happened as far as trades go. Also, obviously, Seattle has the ability moving forward to make trades, because their roster itself that they picked was definitely a little bit surprising. So let's take a look here. Before we begin, I just ask that you please hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't. It helps the channel so much and is greatly appreciated. But let's start here with the Atlantic Division. From the Boston Bruins, they selected defenseman Jeremy Lauzon. From Buffalo, they selected defenseman Will Borgen. From Detroit, they selected defenseman Dennis Cholowski. From Florida, they selected goaltender Chris Driedger, and we knew that that was coming because he's already signed an extension with Seattle, a 3-year deal at $3.5 million. From Montreal, they selected Cale Fleury, defenseman. From Ottawa, they selected goaltender Joey Daccord. From Tampa Bay, they selected forward Yanni Gourde. And from Toronto, they selected forward Jared McCann. So, not a ton of surprises. Really, the only surprises to me were Montreal, them taking Cale Fleury. That one caught me a little bit off guard. And then them taking Joey Daccord from Ottawa. I was not expecting him to be one of the goaltenders that they took, but that's the direction that they went in. And we'll see if there's any sort of side deal involved with either of those picks, down when those trades are eventually released. Metro Division. From Carolina, they took forward Morgan Geekie. From Columbus, they took defenseman Gavin Bayreuther. From New Jersey, they took forward Nathan Bastian. From the Islanders, they took forward Jordan Eberle. From the Rangers, they took forward Colin Blackwell. From Philadelphia, they took forward Carson Twarynski. From Pittsburgh, they took forward Brandon Tanev. And from Washington, they took goaltender Vitek Vanacek. So I think Bayreuther obviously stands out here as kind of a surprise pick. Twarynski from Philadelphia, they definitely had some other options there as well. And then Morgan Geekie was on my radar for them to take from Carolina. I think a lot of people thought that they were going to take Jake Bean, but they ended up going with Morgan Geekie. That's somewhat of a surprise, I guess, because Bean was the popular pick. But again, we'll see if there were any trades involved with any of these. But a couple of surprises here in the Metro. Moving on now to the Central Division. From Arizona, which I almost forgot. I was caught off guard last night. Arizona is now in the Central Division. They took forward Tyler Pitlick. From Chicago, they took forward John Quenneville. From Colorado, they took forward Eunice Donskoy. From Dallas, they took defenseman Jamie Oleksiak, who already has signed a contract extension, a 5-year deal worth $4.6 million per year for Oleksiak with Seattle. From Minnesota, they took defenseman Carson Soucy. I really like that pick there. I think he has a lot of upside that hasn't been tapped into yet because he was a third-pair guy in Minnesota. Nashville, they took Calle Jarnkrok. I really like that pick. Very useful player on a very good $2 million contract. St. Louis, they took Vince Dunn. And from Winnipeg, they took forward Mason Appleton. So really, to me, the only surprise out of this Central Division group is John Quenneville from Chicago. I thought Quenneville's never really worked out as an NHL guy. Sure, he's decent in the AHL, but he's never really been an NHL guy. I'm interested to see if there was any sort of side deal there between Chicago and Seattle, because Quenneville's definitely stands out here as kind of an odd pick. And finally, the Pacific Division, where there were only 6 picks because Vegas was exempt. Anaheim, Hayden Fleury, defenseman. Calgary, Mark Giordano, defenseman. Edmonton, Adam Larson, defenseman. And they have Larson locked up to a 4-year deal, $4 million per season. So he immediately signed an extension with Seattle. Los Angeles Kings, they took Curtis McDermott, defenseman. San Jose, Alexander True, a forward. That one kind of was a surprise. In Vancouver, forward Cole Lind, who is who I expected them to take from Vancouver. So the only real surprises here was True from San Jose and McDermott from the LA Kings. And again, we don't know yet if there were any sort of deals involved there, resulting in those guys being the picks. But we'll find out in the coming days if anything had been agreed to. So there is a recap of the expansion draft for Seattle. Again, there were definitely some surprises. Quite a few of the picks went along the lines of what I was expecting, but there were also quite a few surprises. Probably, 1 to 2 picks per division kind of caught me off guard. So again, we don't know what's happening on the trade market as far as Seattle is concerned. They're probably going to be very active there. And like I said a lot last night during the stream, what their roster looks like now, I don't think is what their roster is going to look like come the beginning of the season. I think there's going to be a lot of other moves made. They've got the possibility of offer sheeting RFAs. They've got big money to possibly spend in free agency. Because here's the thing. So what Seattle has done is set themselves up with a ton of cap space. They have almost $30 million in cap space to work with this offseason. So that is going to mean that they can help facilitate trades by retaining salary or taking on bigger contracts than other teams would be able to. I don't think they're done making moves. A lot of people have been upset that they haven't, with their draft choices, and that they didn't really go out and draft a win now team, and that they left a lot of talented players on the draft board. They did that on purpose because now they have a ton of cap space. They can be active in the trade market. They can be active in free agency. You could possibly see them offer sheet an RFA this offseason because they have the money to do it. And I really think that Seattle is building for the future. They are not trying to come into the league and win right away and be a playoff team out of the gate and do what Vegas did. They're just not. They're going in a very, very different direction. They are trying to have a lot of cap space, build with some young players, use some of these other young guys that maybe haven't worked out as possible trade chips. And they're going to want to acquire draft picks, acquire prospects, and build from the ground up through the draft and not win right now, but play the long game and set themselves up for 4 or 5 years down the line. So that's what I see Ron Francis in Seattle doing based on what they've done with these picks so far. It really does seem like they're playing the long game here and not trying to just come out and be a winning team right away. So it's going to be different than Vegas. But there definitely seems to be a plan here. And it's that they're going to be trying to build for the future, not for right now. Unless they go out and make some drastic trades that, bring in high-end talent right away. Which again, they've got this whole offseason to work all kinds of other moves. So just because they didn't draft the most talented roster right away from the expansion draft doesn't mean that they're not going to have good players on their team, and doesn't mean that they're not building something in Seattle. I think they're more playing the long game than what Vegas did, who came out and just won right away. And I think they're setting themselves up with a ton of cap space to be able to use that down the line to make some moves and facilitate some trades. So still a long offseason to go for the Seattle Kraken. And I am actually excited to see, what else they do this offseason, because I think that there are a lot more moves on the way. And we could start finding out about some of them as early as this afternoon. And obviously, we've still got, a couple months before the season begins. So It's just a quick recap of the Seattle draft, who they took in the expansion draft, and we'll see what moves they make going forward, but I expect them to be very, very active. So like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon, merchandise store, donation link, and memberships are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll talk to you guys soon.